Most men will hear this and feel uncomfortable, not because it's wrong, but because it exposes something they've spent years avoiding. You've been told that younger women choose older men for money, status, confidence, or experience. That's the safe story, the one that protects your ego. But if that were true, far more men would be chosen than actually are. The truth is sharper, quieter, and far more unsettling, because there are older men with success, stability, and intelligence who are still invisible to the women they desire. And there are other men, fewer, calmer, less performative, who are chosen without trying, without chasing, without explaining themselves. This video is not about how to impress. It's about why impressing has never worked. What you're about to hear isn't advice you can apply in a weekend. It's a psychological shift, a lens that changes how women experience you at a nervous system level. And once you see it, you'll realize why some men become more attractive with age while others quietly disappear. Most men believe attraction is something you earn by doing more effort, more attention, more proof. This belief is exactly what disqualifies them, because attraction doesn't respond to force, it responds to containment. If you've ever felt like you were doing everything right and still being overlooked, if you've noticed that the harder you try, the less interest you receive, if you've sensed that something deeper is missing but couldn't name it, then stay with this until the end, because the men who understand what we're about to break down don't compete, don't chase, and don't beg to be chosen. They become unavoidable. And once you understand why, you'll never approach attraction the same way again. Most people misunderstand what emotional regulation actually means. They think it's about being calm on the surface, about appearing unbothered, about playing some cold, detached role. That's not regulation, that's suppression. And suppression always leaks. Emotional regulation is something far deeper. It's the ability to experience emotion without being controlled by it, to feel attraction without urgency, to feel interest without anxiety, to feel desire without turning it into need. And this is where most men, especially older men, quietly lose their power. Younger women are not scanning for perfection. They are scanning for stability, not financial stability alone, but nervous system stability. They are constantly reading micro signals, how quickly you respond, how strongly you react, how easily you are thrown off balance. They notice whether your mood depends on their attention. They feel whether your presence expands the room or contracts it. And this is not conscious. This is biological. The body senses regulation long before the mind labels attraction. An emotionally regulated man doesn't rush emotional closeness. He doesn't try to fast forward connection because he isn't afraid of time. He understands that connection unfolds at its own pace, and forcing it actually kills desire. When he listens, he is not waiting for his turn to speak. He is actually present. When silence appears, he doesn't rush to fill it, because silence doesn't threaten him. Silence is only uncomfortable for people who need validation to feel real. This is why emotional regulation feels magnetic. It creates spaciousness, and spaciousness allows desire to grow. A younger woman may not be able to articulate this, but she feels it clearly. Around an emotionally unregulated man, she feels pressure to respond, pressure to reassure, pressure to manage his emotions. Around a regulated man, she feels relief from performance, relief from emotional labor, relief from chaos. And relief is deeply attractive. Here's the uncomfortable truth many men resist. Attraction is not built through intensity. It is built through containment. A man who cannot contain his own emotions will unconsciously ask a woman to do it for him. He will seek reassurance when he feels uncertain. He will over-explain when he feels misunderstood. He will push for clarity when he feels anxious. And the moment a woman senses that she is regulating him, attraction begins to decline, not because she dislikes him, but because polarity collapses. Emotional regulation is also why the chosen older man does not react dramatically to emotional fluctuations. Younger women test not maliciously, they test consistency, they test boundaries, they test emotional resilience, not to provoke, but to assess safety. A man who overreacts fails the test. A man who shuts down emotionally also fails, but the man who stays grounded, who doesn't escalate or retreat, who remains steady without becoming rigid, passes without effort. And this steadiness is not passive, it is active self-leadership. It comes from having already confronted loneliness, disappointment, rejection, and uncertainty without collapsing. It comes from having built an internal structure strong enough to hold discomfort without outsourcing it. That's why emotional regulation cannot be faked. It is earned, it is practiced, it is lived. An emotionally regulated man doesn't confuse attraction with urgency. He understands that desire grows in environments where nothing is being demanded. He doesn't seek to lock someone down emotionally to feel secure. He is secure first. And that security becomes the foundation of attraction, not the result of it. This is a reversal most men never make. They wait to feel chosen before they feel grounded. The men who get chosen are grounded before anyone chooses them. Notice how these men handle uncertainty. They don't interrogate it. They don't dramatize it. They allow it. They understand that ambiguity is part of human connection. And because they can tolerate ambiguity, they don't rush to control outcomes. Control is always rooted in fear. Regulation is rooted in trust, not trust in others, but trust in oneself. This is also why emotionally regulated men don't overshare early. They don't unload their wounds to create artificial intimacy. They respect emotional pacing. They understand that intimacy without containment becomes emotional flooding, and emotional flooding feels unsafe, not bonding. Their vulnerability is clean, not chaotic, honest, but not uncontrolled. And that distinction matters more than most people realize. A younger woman feels this difference viscerally. Around an unregulated man, she feels pulled into emotional responsibility too soon. Around a regulated man, she feels free to remain in her own experience. And freedom is seductive. Not freedom from commitment, but freedom from pressure. Pressure kills attraction faster than anything else. This is where age, when integrated properly, becomes an advantage. Time gives men the opportunity to develop emotional mastery, but only if they actually reflect instead of repeat. Many men age without integrating experience. They carry the same emotional reactions with more years behind them. Younger women sense this instantly. Age without regulation feels heavy. Age with regulation feels anchoring, and anchoring does not mean controlling. It means being a stable reference point. Someone whose reactions are proportional, someone whose sense of self does not fluctuate based on external validation, someone who can hold intensity without becoming intense. This creates trust before words ever do. Here's the final piece most men miss. Emotional regulation is attractive because it signals choice. A regulated man is not there because he needs to be. He is there because he chooses to be. And that difference changes everything. Neediness feels binding. Choice feels honoring. One drains desire, the other deepens it. When a younger woman feels that a man could walk away without resentment, without collapse, without punishment, she relaxes. And when she relaxes, attraction has space to emerge naturally. This is not manipulation. This is maturity. This is the quiet confidence of a man who knows that his value is not negotiated through emotional urgency. So if you want to be chosen more, don't focus on being impressive. Focus on being regulated. Learn to sit with your emotions without acting them out. Learn to pause before reacting. Learn to let connection unfold without gripping it. Because the man who can lead himself emotionally becomes the man others trust instinctively. And the truth is simple, even if it's not easy. The man who masters his inner world no longer needs to chase attention in the outer one, and that is precisely why it comes to him. One of the most counterintuitive truths about attraction is that it does not grow in environments of excess. It grows in environments of meaning, and meaning is created through contrast, through pacing, through the careful placement of attention. This is why the scarcity of attention is not manipulation, but signal. It tells the nervous system, this is not freely available, this is intentional. Most men never learn this distinction, and as a result, they give everything too quickly and wonder why nothing is valued. When an older man offers attention without limits, without rhythm, without discernment, it does not feel generous. It feels indiscriminate, and indiscriminate attention has no weight. Younger women are especially sensitive to this because they receive attention constantly. Compliments, messages, reactions, validation are everywhere. So when a man floods her with availability, it does not stand out. It blends in. It becomes background noise. What stands out is restraint, not withdrawal, not games, but deliberate presence. Scarcity is not about doing less for the sake of power. It is about doing things at the right time, for the right reasons. A man who understands this does not rush communication. He does not respond from anxiety. He responds from choice. That difference is felt immediately. The pacing of his attention signals emotional self-sufficiency. It communicates that his life is full, structured, and meaningful with or without her immediate response. And paradoxically, that makes his attention more desirable. Younger women are not drawn to men who are constantly available. They are drawn to men whose attention feels earned. Earned attention carries a different emotional charge. It creates anticipation instead of saturation. It allows curiosity to form. It gives space for imagination. When everything is given up front, there is nothing left to discover. Desire does not survive in fully exposed landscapes. It needs partial mystery, not secrecy, but unfolding. Most men misunderstand this and assume that giving more equals caring more. But psychologically, overgiving early often signals insecurity, not interest. It suggests that a man is trying to buy connection instead of allowing it to develop organically. Younger women sense this instinctively. They may appreciate the effort, but attraction quietly diminishes because the interaction lacks polarity. There is no tension, no contrast, no rhythm. It becomes emotionally flat. The man who gets chosen understands that attention is a form of energy, and energy must be regulated to remain potent. He does not text to fill emptiness. He does not call to reduce anxiety. He reaches out because he wants to connect, not because he fears losing connection. That internal distinction changes the external dynamic. His communication feels grounded, not compulsive, present, not pressing. This is also why he does not over-explain himself. Over-explanation is often an attempt to control perception. It comes from the fear of being misunderstood. But a man who values his own time and attention does not chase interpretation. He states, he allows others to respond as they will. This creates respect, not forced respect, but natural respect. Because clarity delivered without desperation feels authoritative. Scarcity also applies to emotional access. The chosen man does not immediately reveal everything about himself to accelerate intimacy. He understands that intimacy without context feels intrusive. He allows emotional depth to emerge gradually in response to mutual investment. This pacing protects both people. It prevents emotional overwhelm. It allows trust to form naturally rather than being rushed into existence. Younger women feel safer in this structure, even if they cannot name why. Safety does not come from constant reassurance. It comes from consistency and predictability. A man who is always available is not predictable. He is reactive. A man who has a rhythm to his attention, who shows up reliably without overextending, creates a stable emotional environment. And stability, when combined with restraint, becomes deeply attractive. Here is the philosophical layer beneath all of this. Value is not assigned by effort alone. It is assigned by selectivity. We value what is chosen carefully, not what is given freely. This is true in art, in time, in relationships. A man who treats his attention as precious communicates that he treats himself as precious, and people take cues from that. If he does not respect his own time and energy, why should anyone else? This is where many older men sabotage themselves. They believe age entitles them to intensity or that they must compensate for youth with availability. In reality, it is the opposite. Age becomes attractive when it brings discernment, when it brings the ability to say no without bitterness, when it brings the confidence to move slowly without fear of missing out. Younger women are not attracted to speed. They are attracted to certainty, and certainty moves calmly. The scarcity of attention also prevents emotional dependency from forming too early. Dependency kills attraction. It creates imbalance. The chosen man does not let himself become the sole emotional source for someone he is just getting to know. He allows her to maintain her own life, her own rhythms, her own independence. This communicates respect, not disinterest. And respect is the soil where desire grows. Notice how different this feels from games. Games are rooted in fear. They are designed to control outcomes. Scarcity rooted in self-respect is effortless. It is simply the natural consequence of a full life. The man is not withholding, he is occupied, he is engaged, he is invested in things that matter to him. And that fullness makes his attention feel like a gift, not an obligation. When his attention arrives, it lands, it feels intentional, it feels considered, it feels clean. There is no emotional residue of desperation attached to it. And because of that, it is felt more deeply. Quality always outperforms quantity in emotional exchanges, always. This principle extends beyond romantic interest. It is about how a man relates to his own time, his own energy, his own presence. When he treats these as unlimited, others do too. When he treats them as valuable, others respond accordingly. This is not strategy, it is self-leadership. So if you want to be chosen more, resist the urge to overgive. Resist the urge to prove. Let your attention breathe. Let connection develop its own rhythm. Trust that what is meant to grow will grow without force. Because attention given slowly becomes presence. Presence creates meaning, and meaning is what makes a man unforgettable. One of the quiet reasons older men lose influence with younger women is not age, not looks, not even insecurity. It is comparison. The moment a man measures himself against others, especially younger men, he has already stepped out of his own authority. Attraction does not grow in comparison, it grows in coherence. And coherence comes from having a solid internal frame that does not wobble when other people enter the room. An unshakable self-frame is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is when a man knows who he is, what he values, and how he moves through the world without needing constant external confirmation. Younger women sense this immediately. They are not impressed by a man who talks about his worth. They are drawn to a man who behaves as if his worth is already settled. The man who gets chosen does not compete with younger men because he does not see life as a competition for attention. Competition signals scarcity. It reveals the belief that there is not enough value to go around. A grounded man understands that attraction is not a marketplace where the loudest bidder wins. It is a resonance. Either two people align, or they don't, and alignment cannot be forced. When an older man subtly criticizes younger men, compares himself, or tries to highlight why he is better, he collapses his own position. Even if his points are valid, the emotional message underneath is insecurity. Younger women are extremely attuned to this. They may not consciously analyze it, but they feel the tension, and tension rooted in insecurity is never attractive. The man with a strong self-frame does not need to be the center of attention. He is comfortable being part of the room without dominating it. He does not posture. He does not exaggerate. He does not perform masculinity as a role. His masculinity is integrated, not advertised. This makes him feel authentic, and authenticity is far more compelling than performance. Self-frame is also revealed in how a man handles disagreement. A man without a strong frame argues to win. A man with a strong frame listens to understand. He does not feel threatened by differing opinions. He does not rush to defend his identity. He knows who he is even when someone disagrees with him. This calm confidence is deeply stabilizing to be around. Younger women are often navigating a world full of emotional noise, performative confidence, and reactive behavior. When they encounter a man who does not need to prove himself, it stands out immediately. Not because he is louder, but because he is quieter in the right way. His presence feels settled, and settled presence creates trust. An unshakable self-frame also means a man is not chasing outcomes. He is not overly invested in whether a particular interaction leads somewhere. He enjoys connection for what it is, without attaching his self-worth to the result. This detachment is not indifference, it is emotional sovereignty, and emotional sovereignty is rare. This is why the chosen man can walk away from dynamics that do not align with his values without resentment. He does not stay where he feels disrespected just to feel chosen. He does not negotiate his boundaries for approval. Younger women may not always like this in the moment, but they respect it deeply. Respect often precedes attraction. A man with a strong frame also does not rush intimacy to secure relevance. He allows things to unfold naturally because he does not fear being replaced. Replacement anxiety is a sign that a man's identity is externally anchored. A man who knows his worth does not fear comparison because he is not trying to be interchangeable. He is being himself. This self-frame is built over time through self-confrontation, through taking responsibility instead of blaming circumstances, through learning from failure without becoming bitter. Many men age without doing this work. They carry unresolved frustrations and call it wisdom. Younger women can feel the difference between maturity and resignation instantly. The man who gets chosen has integrated his past rather than being defined by it. He does not speak from regret or nostalgia. He speaks from presence. He is not trying to relive youth or compete with it. He has extracted meaning from his experiences and stands firmly in who he has become. That grounded identity is what feels attractive, not the number of years behind him. Another important aspect of self-frame is emotional consistency. A man who is confident only when things are going well does not have a strong frame. A strong frame remains steady under stress, uncertainty, or emotional shifts. Younger women test this not consciously, but instinctively. They watch how a man responds when things do not go his way. Does he become defensive, sarcastic, withdrawn, or reactive, or does he remain composed? Composure is not suppression, it is choice. It is the ability to respond rather than react, and response requires a stable internal reference point. This is why self-frame cannot be borrowed, it must be built. And it is built through living in alignment with one's values, not through external validation. The man with an unshakable frame also does not seek to control. Control is often mistaken for strength, but it is rooted in fear. A confident man allows others to be themselves. He does not micromanage emotions or outcomes. He trusts his ability to handle whatever arises. That trust in himself becomes contagious. Younger women feel more free around such a man, not because he lacks standards, but because his standards are clear and non-negotiable. Freedom within structure is far more attractive than freedom without direction, and direction does not come from dominance. It comes from self-leadership. Here is the deeper truth. A man's frame is his internal agreement with himself about who he is. When that agreement is solid, the world responds differently. Conversations shift, dynamics soften, attraction flows more naturally. Not because he is trying harder, but because he is anchored. This is why the man who gets chosen does not ask to be chosen. He shows up as himself, fully, without apology and without demand. And that presence invites others to step toward him voluntarily. So the question is not how to compete, or how to stand out, or how to win. The real question is whether you are standing firmly in who you are, even when no one is watching. Because the man who holds his frame does not chase attention. He becomes the place where attention naturally rests. There is a moment in every interaction where power quietly reveals itself. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it happens internally, long before words or actions change. That moment is when a man realizes he could lose this person and still be whole. Most men never reach that point, and that is precisely why they struggle to be chosen. The willingness to lose is often misunderstood. People hear it and think it means indifference, coldness, or emotional detachment. It doesn't. In fact, it requires the opposite. It requires emotional maturity. It requires having felt attachment deeply enough to know that clinging destroys what you want to keep. The man who gets chosen is not careless with connection. He simply refuses to sacrifice his self-respect to preserve it. Younger women are incredibly sensitive to emotional bargaining. They feel when a man's behavior is driven by fear of loss. It shows up in subtle ways: over-accommodation, avoiding boundaries, saying yes when he means no, staying silent when something matters to him. Each of these sends the same signal: I need this more than I need myself. And the moment that signal is felt, attraction shifts. Not because the woman becomes cruel or judgmental, but because polarity dissolves. A man who is willing to lose does not threaten to leave. He does not use distance as punishment. He does not announce his independence. He simply lives it. His choices come from alignment, not fear. If something fits, he stays. If it doesn't, he leaves calmly, without resentment, without drama, without trying to be remembered as the good guy. That quiet decisiveness is deeply unsettling to people who are used to emotional negotiation, and unsettling in this context is attractive. The reason this works is psychological. Desire cannot exist where obligation dominates. The moment a woman feels responsible for a man's emotional stability, desire becomes duty. Duty suffocates attraction. The man who is willing to lose never places that burden on her. He does not need her to choose him to validate his worth. And because of that, when she does choose him, it feels clean, it feels free. Most men believe holding on tightly creates security. In reality, it creates tension. The more tightly you grip, the more pressure builds. The man who understands this relaxes his grip. Not because he doesn't care, but because he trusts himself enough to survive loss. That trust is what creates safety. A paradox most people never resolve is that emotional safety comes from knowing someone is choosing you, not needing you. This willingness to lose is also why the chosen man does not manipulate outcomes. He does not try to control feelings, timelines, or decisions. Control is always an attempt to avoid loss, and avoidance of loss signals fragility. A man who can tolerate loss does not need to control. He can allow dynamics to unfold naturally, knowing that whatever the outcome, he remains intact. Younger women feel this as emotional freedom. They are not being pulled, persuaded, or pressured. They are being invited. And invitation feels very different from persuasion. Invitation honors autonomy. It says, you are free to choose. That freedom is rare, and rarity increases value. The willingness to lose also shows up in how a man handles rejection or uncertainty. He does not spiral. He does not demand explanations. He does not seek closure to soothe his ego. He accepts reality as it is, not as he wishes it to be. This acceptance is not passive resignation. It is active self-respect. He values himself enough not to chase clarity from someone who is unable or unwilling to provide it. Many men mistake endurance for strength. They stay in situations that drain them and call it loyalty. But loyalty without self-respect becomes self-betrayal. The man who gets chosen knows the difference. He understands that staying, when it costs him his dignity, teaches others how to treat him. Leaving when alignment is gone teaches something even more important, that he honors his own boundaries. This is deeply attractive because it communicates integrity. Integrity is when your actions align with your values, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Younger women may not consciously articulate this, but they feel it in their bodies. A man with integrity feels solid, predictable in the best way, safe without being controlling. The willingness to lose also prevents emotional manipulation from taking root. A man who is afraid to lose can be easily led. He will compromise his needs to maintain connection. He will accept inconsistency. He will rationalize disrespect. The man who is willing to lose does none of this. not because he is rigid, but because he knows that peace is worth more than approval. And here is the deeper philosophical truth. Everything you cling to owns you. Everything you can release without collapsing becomes a choice. The man who can release outcomes, people, and expectations without losing his sense of self operates from choice. Choice is the foundation of freedom, and freedom is attractive. This does not mean he avoids attachment. He allows himself to care fully. But he does not confuse caring with possession. He understands that love is not proven by endurance alone, but by the capacity to let go without bitterness. This emotional cleanliness is rare, especially in a world that glorifies obsession as passion. The willingness to lose also changes how a man enters relationships. He does not arrive with an agenda to secure permanence. He arrives curious, open, and grounded. He allows the relationship to become what it is, not what he needs it to be. This openness creates space for genuine connection rather than forced attachment. When a younger woman senses that a man will not punish her emotionally for choosing differently, she relaxes. She feels safe to be honest. And honesty deepens connection far more than pressure ever could. Ironically, the man who makes it easy to leave often becomes the one people want to stay with. This is why the ultimate power is not control, persuasion, or strategy. It is self-sufficiency, not isolation, but internal completeness. The man who is complete does not fear loss, because loss does not define him. And when loss does not define you, you are no longer acting from fear. So if you want to be chosen more, ask yourself this quietly and honestly. Are you staying because you choose to, or because you are afraid to walk away? Because the moment you learn to stand firmly even in the possibility of loss, you stop begging to be chosen and start being chosen naturally.